being in politics fundamentally is a system that is somewhat dehumanizing. They need to properly understand that there are people who need this and that they are the people who matter more than the lobbyists or the city who are desperately trying to stop them.
It's a corporate event, mostly. You've got all the fringe events with companies trying to sell their ideas and trying to lobby people. It is what it is.
We've got Keir Starmer accepting some donations of clothes. Like, if you look at the US, the First Lady and the President have a huge budget in the US for clothing to look their best on a world stage. We don't have that here. Our taxpayers don't pay for that, and that's right. So why, if he declares that, which he has done, why can't he just accept some donations of clothes when Boris Johnson accepted the wallpaper, which cost even more?
It's conference season, and Labour went to Liverpool. But after the jubilation of an election landslide comes the reality of government. Pepys asked members what it was like for the party to be depicted as cruel for taking away winter fuel payments and keeping a two-child benefit cap, and how they think the well-suited and booted Sir Keir Starmer is doing as Prime Minister.
But a lot of people say that this Labour government is just really the Tories in disguise. They've cut the winter fuel allowance, they're not rowing back on the two-child benefit cap. People say this government is cruel. What do you think of that?
No, I don't think it is. I think that's a really simplistic view of it. Look, they've said that they're going to take tough decisions, and they are going to have to do that. The £22 billion black hole. Personally, on the winter fuel allowance, I think that it should have been done more nuanced than it's been done. I think there are people like myself, for example, I get it, who don't need it. I would have been fine. I just think they should have found some more nuanced way to do it.
It's a blanket payment that goes to everybody who claims a pension. So people just don't need it. So there are some people who just don't need it. My mum keeps saying that she doesn't need it and she wants to give it to someone who does need it, if that makes sense. So I think and there are pensioners who absolutely need that winter fuel payment, definitely. And I think we need to maybe just have a rethink about how we allocate that, if that makes sense.
They often say the first 6 months of the next government looks a lot like the last 6 months of the previous government. People were saying when the Conservatives got in power in 2010, it looks a lot like Labour used to look. I mean, what's really changed? It took about a year for people to start to notice that things were changing.
But do you think that Labour could be making different decisions?
I think there are always different decisions that you could possibly want to make, and I think it is really challenging when you're at the sharp end and you have to decide one way or the other who it is that's going to end up without. And I don't think this was a decision that the government wanted to take.
So you don't think anybody's going to struggle, that no one's going to have to make the choice between heating and eating because they don't have this payment?
Everyone is, I've been looking at the thermostat dial, not wanting to turn it up. I live in Scotland, it's been quite cold. No one's in a massively happy place economically at the moment. But I think there's a bit of a misportrayal in how big of a cut this will be. It was a temporary solution in 1998 I came in, I think. It was a temporary solution then, but if you look at what we're doing now, means testing it for the pensioners who need it most. But most pensioners are still going to come away with this with more money in the pocket with the triple lock as pensions go up.
We've experienced this before. If you look at history, Labour has come to power in the Wilson era with marvellous ideas, and we were completely destroyed by the economy. So that's in Labour's race memory.
But are they really being forced? Surely they could be making different decisions.
Well, you could take a different decision on winter fuel allowance, and maybe when you get to the budget, then there'll be some thought around how we can make sure the pensioners most in need do get support, including those who are on the edge, just earning slightly too much to get the actual winter fuel allowance.
Obviously, giving millionaires a winter fuel allowance, it doesn't make sense. I would like to have seen those millionaires and billionaires taxed so that we still have a universal benefit where people get winter fuel allowance, but we get the money back from the very, very rich.
Do you see how residents find it hard to accept that, for example, the government won't put in like a new wealth tax and they won't lay that burden of needing more money on those who are the most well off?
Rachel Reeves actually has laid out some really good policy on taxing and closing loopholes in financial regulations to make sure that money from higher incomes is coming in. That's always been something that was in the manifesto, and I'm excited to see that come forward now.
Well, I don't have a problem with the wealth tax. I'm a socialist, and I think if you're earning millions of pounds a day, then you should give something back to society, and it should be something substantial. So, yes, and I think that we are looking at that in government. The problem is coming to power with immediate decisions to make. There isn't the leisure to think through a set of new policies on those wealth taxes yet. However, it's yet, and I've been to loads of meetings today where there are think tanks and loads of intelligent people putting together ideas, so I'm very optimistic.
What have they done in the past 3 months that has made ordinary people's lives better?
Oh man, I've got my phone over there. I've got a list on my phone and I haven't got it in front of me now.
The other thing to think about, though, is Britain is not a socialist country. Britain's a small C conservative country. And as a Democrat, an elected person, I know that to some extent have to go with the grain. I have to not frighten the horses, work with people so that they understand and they build confidence in the Labour Party.
That must feel quite frustrating though, right? Always wishing for something bolder and never getting it.
Hey, I've been at this for 40 years, yeah.
They are bringing back the power for local authorities to run genuine local bus services. That will be a huge boon to struggling pensioners and people on low incomes who tend to be the people who most use bus services.
Do you think the decisions they've made are fundamentally cruel?
I think there's certainly... That's a hard question to answer. Yeah, there is a big element of cruelty in decisions like that, taking away benefits from those who depend on them, regardless of how you frame means testing or that you're taking it away from the richest. The net result of policies like that is that more people are going to struggle, and it's the same with the two-child benefit cap. I think it does require certainly a level of not empathizing with the people in this country. I don't want to say necessarily cruelty, but there's maybe a failure to recognize them as equally human.
More money and more building going into social housing. Again, that is absolutely critical. I can tell you, hand on heart, the casework that I'm dealing with as a councillor, almost all of it comes back to housing problems and the difficulty people have in getting moved into appropriate properties. The housing list is catastrophic.
Not getting rid of the two-child benefit cap, scrapping the winter fuel allowance. Lots of people say these are just Tory policies in disguise. Would you agree?
Ish, I suppose. With the two-child benefit cap, yeah, I think that should go.
What they're talking about is well, they will remove that when the economic conditions are right. It's not that we're not going to remove it. We have to remove that. You know, it's not fair. It's cruel. It's a Tory policy, and we are going to remove it when the conditions are right. We have to hold the government to that.
They're talking about bringing more of the rail services back into public ownership. There was a lot of question at one point about whether Labour would follow through on that policy, and yes, they are absolutely following through on that policy.
I think Keir Starmer is a very skilled individual with a huge amount of experience, and I think the sleaze accusations are harsh. And I don't think that would have happened under a Tory government.
Yeah, I agree. I think I saw a really interesting infographic the other day that put Boris Johnson above the most recent chart that was released, which had Keir Starmer at the top, I think with 100,000, which had Boris Johnson at 6.3 million. So I think that probably speaks for itself.
Do you think he's behaving in the way that you would like him to behave?
Sorry, that was a long pause. With that, I think the question is who you're listening to and who you're not listening to. And I know his argument is that he's saying it doesn't influence my decisions at all, and that's fair enough. But there's a whole culture that people just buy into when they get into politics. I think you're seeing that with the new MPs who are doing this for the first time. It's somewhat eyebrow-raising as to just how much of there is with the free tickets, the clothes, and so on. What's going on in Keir's heart and mind? I don't know. I can't possibly speak to that.
I mean, stuff with the football tickets, I think that's been blown a bit out of proportion. You know, he's been a season ticket holder for this club for yonks. He's the Prime Minister. Of course, he's not going to be in the stands. Rishi Sunak wasn't. I've seen this thing that Rishi Sunak was in the stands. He wasn't. He was in the director's box. Just for basic security measures, he's the Prime Minister. He should be, in a slightly safer place when he's at a football club.
I think he could be a bit more politically savvy. But then again, he's only been in the job for 3 months. But the counter to that argument is, he's led public service before, so he should know what he's doing. He's been the leader for 3 to 4 years now. He should know what he's doing. Rookie mistakes.
So, what's really annoying a lot of us is how this is the media are making this out to be a huge issue, when actually let's look back at the Tories and all the things they did that they never declared, all the gifts they accepted that they never declared. Boris Johnson had people paying for his kids' tuition, his kids' school, his holidays, everything. Where's all that gone, All sorts of things that happened under the Tories. The COVID, the WhatsApp COVID stories and all the money that got siphoned off into people's personal bank accounts, Let's think back to all that.
Was it Arsenal?
Do you not agree, though, optically it doesn't look great, given they're cutting pensioners' allowance and then he's accepting gifts?
Of course it doesn't. Yeah, of course it doesn't. Optics are everything in politics, and sometimes making decisions, and I think I saw an announcement that Keir, Angela and Rachel, for example, said that they wouldn't accept any more gifts for exactly the point you're making. Politicians need to lead from the top and make optical decisions, and I think that they've shown that they've heard the anger on it. Even though the magnitude's different, the point of principle is the same.